Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
It's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters. Greetings, greetings. All right, back here, another episode of Brew Strong. And this is going to be a Q&A episode.
That's right, Jamil.
Meaning question and answer. And what you can do if you want to get a question in on the Q&A show, you can either participate live in the show. You go to thebrewingnetwork.com, and there's a listen live and a chat now button, and you drop right into the chat. You can enter in a fake name. You don't need a password or anything like that. And you go right in, and you can participate, ask questions as the show happens, and kind of participate. Throw in your wise comments and things like that. Or you can email brewstrong@thebrewingnetwork.com. Good idea if you just throw Q&A at the beginning of whatever your subject matter is, and we'll be able to flag it for Q&A shows much quicker that way. And
sorry, Palmer, I had your mic on mute. I'm sorry.
And
sorry.
we can kind of go from there and answer those questions for you. I'll tell you another great guy at answering questions.
Who's that? Is it me?
No.
Shit. Well, then I don't care.
But it's our good buddy John Blickman.
That's right.
That guy is a wealth of knowledge about a lot of subjects in general, but also about brewing and equipment and engineering. Real knowledgeable guy, real nice guy. Lots of very, very helpful and very interested in innovating new products for the homebrew market.
That's true.
He's a gadget guy, just like us. He's thinking about what would make this easier on us during the brew day, and what kind of product could make things better. Make the beer better. Got an interesting email, in fact, last week from a listener that expressed, he copied Jamil and I on, thanking Blickman and Blickman Engineering for great customer support. Did you see that, Jamil?
And no, I didn't.
He says here, I'm continually impressed with John Blickman's customer service. I sent Blickman an email stating that I had purchased one of the Blickman burners and was missing some parts. I plainly stated that it was probably my fault and that I could have misplaced them between the time I purchased it and the time I first tried to use it. And so he said he emailed John just to get some part numbers so he could purchase them from McMaster-Carr. But John replied that day and said, I'm going to send them to you. So the guy Jason Wyatt was very, very pleased with his customer service from Blickman Engineering.
Well, that's the way John Blickman rolls. I mean, he's he's got that Midwest ethic about hard work and treating people right and doing the right thing, and it really shows in customer service and all the happy customers that he has. And he
cures allergies too.
He just that.
Why would you say that?
Way. And and you'd be surprised at the great thing about him is he can answer a lot of questions about things, but he'll ask a lot of questions. I think the most brilliant guys out there are the ones who ask a lot of questions, and they're always constantly learning, always constantly innovating, and that's what you get with Blickman Engineering. So go check them out on the web, BlickmanEngineering.com. That's Blickman with 2 N's, BLICHMANN, engineering.com. And check out all the cool stuff that they have. They're always coming out with new stuff. I wouldn't be surprised to see them in Seattle at the Homebrewers Conference, and they're going to probably have something new there. It wouldn't shock me.
Yeah.
And go check it out. Go up and find him. Just say, hey, where's John Blickman? I want to say hi. He loves it. He loves to meet you guys and hear your stories about what you're brewing and what you enjoy. And while you're there, thank him for sponsoring the show, so this show is possible for you. Alrighty, so Q&A. Let's jump on one real quick, and then maybe we'll take a quick break after that.
All right. This says, "Dear handsome men at Brew Strong." It really doesn't.
So that must be for the Sunday show.
I made that part up. I asked a question about fermenting under pressure in pinlock kegs. I don't think JP got my point. Really? Thanks, jerk. I live in Texas and I vaguely remember this question from last time. This is from Iconis. I live in Texas and deal with super high heat most of the year. For the first couple of years, nearly 100% of my beers have had too much fusel ester production. To combat the high fermentation temps, I started experimenting with pressure fermenting.
Mm-hmm.
As commercial breweries have large fermentation tanks, they have a certain amount of hydrostatic pressure on the yeast during the growth stage.
Mm-hmm.
My process is to push the yeast into the keg and put my spunding valve on the gas output set about 5 to 7 psi. After I get about 95% of the attenuation I'm expecting, I ramp the pressure up to whatever the carb volumes I would want for whatever temp the liquid is at, essentially capping the taller fermenter. That's the heart of my question. How much psi is too much on the yeast during the growth and the following phases? I do pitch a healthy amount of yeast. I oxygenate well. I also now have obtained a freezer and dual-stage temp controller.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a lot of comments on this. First off, I don't recall what the pressure is that'll kill yeast, but it is possible to actually sterilize something at room temperature if you use enough pressure. It essentially just kills all those microorganisms. You get a high enough pressure, boom. I think there was some French company that was working on designing room temperature sterilization for beer. Just through extremely high pressure. So I'm not sure what it is, but the higher the pressure, the more damaging it is to the yeast. But I'm a little concerned about his process of using the pressure and then increasing the pressure towards the end to trap the CO2. I would worry that you're not perhaps getting enough vigor in the fermentation and enough blow-off in the fermentation, especially in a closed keg, to vent a lot of those aromatic compounds that need to get blown off.
Hydrogen sulfide,
yeah, especially sulfurs.
And I'm thinking that esters are produced at the beginning of fermentation?
Well, a lot of the determination of what esters are going to be escape the cell later on, or compounds that become esters later on, are determined by membrane health and all that up front, the rate of growth, things like that. But pressure does reduce ester production. But when they do it on lagers, high-pressure lagers, I think they're only talking about 2 or 3 psi. Really tall tanks, See, one of the things about these commercial brewers that are fermenting in these taller tanks, but the vigor of the ferment and the rate of the blow-off is massive. So they still are getting that kind of exchange of blowing off all those other compounds. So I would
the scrubbing,
I would wonder about that. But other than that, I think that the process seems sound. I'm not sure. You should be able to find the number of what pressure will kill the yeast. I I know I asked Chris White
I thought it
this
was
question.
3, but that seems really low.
No, I think that's low. I asked him the question before, and I'm not sure what the answer was, or maybe he didn't have an answer for me at the time.
Let's get him on the phone.
Right.
My issue with that is from the homebrew stuff that I've read from George Fix way back when, that fermenting in corny kegs, it's not the proper shape, and you're going to get some kind of funky off flavors going on.
Well, the problem is I think you tend to end up with dead zones. You don't get quite as rapid an exchange, and that's what we're talking about. You know, when the commercial brewers
turnover, you mean?
Yeah, when commercial brewers are brewing in these tall tanks, they have the cone bottoms. They tend to, you get a nice flow going, and it tends to turn over the wort more effectively. If you end up with dead spots, and the thing in the Fix books was when they're using the Yorkshire squares or square fermenters, there were corners in there, and the diacetyl levels would be much higher, because in those corners it was sort of fermenting, but you really wouldn't get quite the exchange. You wouldn't get the vigorous fermentation in the corners of the square, and that's why the diacetyl levels were higher. So, that is something to concern yourself with. Again, I think you need, ensure enough vigor in your fermentation for that. If I was doing that, I would consider going to something like a Blickman conical fermenter, where it has the lid and you can pressurize it and things like that. That might be a better choice. Again, because of the cone bottom. I think,
sealing that up, with a relief valve.
Right. And that's one other thing is, one of the reasons that commercial brewers, and home brewers are like, secondary and all that. And we're like, no, you don't need to do secondary. Secondary is not needed. Well, if you're going to be holding the yeast under these pressures, the yeast will die quicker, and you do need to worry about, the yeast dying and producing off flavors that way. So one of the things about those cones is, you can drop out some of the yeast, and that helps as well. So, yeah, I'd be a little concerned about, increasing the pressure to capture CO2 without getting rid of the yeast. So if he's transferring from like one corny keg to another, then that might be okay, and leaving the yeast behind. But if he's leaving all the yeast in there, I think that could be a concern.
I just wouldn't even ferment in a keg.
Right. So
it's the right design, man.
There's lots of, and the biggest problem for me on those is, getting them 100% clean, because there's so many little nooks and crannies in those kegs that would concern me as well.
Mm-hmm. But didn't he say that he was going to look into getting a temperature controller and so on? I mean, if he can correct his temperature from the get-go, then the whole pressure situation just goes out the window.
Right. Then I wouldn't do the pressure thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go ahead and, trap it for CO2 and all that, but even then, I don't know.
Big deal.
I wouldn't, I think you tend to trap a little bit of those compounds that can get blown off there towards the end, and, I like to do that. A lot of times these techniques are used in commercial breweries because they save, $5 worth of CO2 per batch, out of, the $40,000 batch of beer, they save $5, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's $5, and it's $5
bottom line, man.
100 times a week, it's $500, and then it's thousands a month, and over the course of a year, it really adds up. So that's why they do a lot of these things, and it's not necessarily to make better beer. It's because it's a little cheaper way to do things. Yeah. When the beer quality, if you do it right, it maintains the same. So yeah, I don't know.
Sometimes as home brewers, we don't want to hear that. Sometimes commercial breweries will sacrifice for the bottom line.
Oh, absolutely.
No one wants to hear that. It's craft beers are very glorified in that regard.
But that's, I mean, you got to make a choice of, it's like, you gotta make as much beer out of that freaking tank as you can, and whatever it takes to get that done. That's the only way you can be profitable. The margins are so slim that it's hard to be profitable.
Or making all your labels look the same. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yep. All righty. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, more of your questions after this.
When you hear Blickman Engineering, think innovation, passion, quality, and customer service. Blickman gear is designed by brewers to give you a sense of pride in your equipment. At Blickman, they know what makes brewing a pain and build gear that makes it fun. Like the intuitive beer gun, a completely different approach to filling bottles. The Therminator Wort Chiller, a new take on a plate chiller that's sized for flow, performance, and the high groundwater temps homebrewers face every day. The Brewmometer, a brilliant weldless thermometer design with brewing parameters right on the dial. The Autosparge, ultimate simplicity for preventing an overflow or running your mash tun dry. And much more, like the modular top-tier brewing stand, conical fermenters, and their Boilermaker brew pots. With more cutting-edge equipment coming soon, keep up with the latest from Blickman at blickmanengineering.com and stay on the cutting edge.
Hi, this is Push from the Brewing Network, and I want to tell you about the Brewmaster's Warehouse and how you can get 10% off your next order. I'm a pretty techie guy, but I've never seen an online store like this. It's awesome. Go to brewmasterswarehouse.com and click on Brew Builder. You can whip up a custom recipe so easily even Sven could do it. Seriously, it's slick. You can share your recipe with your own logo and notes to the Brewmaster's database if you want, and the best part, it keeps a running tally of the beer you're building while you're doing it. Then, bam, click Buy Recipe, and your cart is filled and ready to go with helpful suggestions in case you forgot something. This thing is amazing. Brewmaster's Warehouse is run the way a home brewer would do it, with great service, fast turnaround, and $6.99 flat rate shipping. Brewmaster's Warehouse and the Brew Builder blew me away. Check it out today at brewmasterswarehouse.com. I'm serious. And don't forget to put BNARMY in the discount code box for 10% off your order. Check out brewmasterswarehouse.com. Cheers.
A heretic is anyone who does not conform to an established attitude, doctrine, or principle.
If you love craft beer, you're already a heretic.
The very first thing we did when we started looking at the beers that we would brew, we got rid of all those recipes. We started from scratch. We've been pilot brewing the most creative things that we could think of and the most interesting things. We've completely gone away from style.
Heretic Brewing Company is opening this spring in Pittsburgh, California, and you can be a part of it. Visit hereticbrewing.com and facebook.com/hereticbrew. Get the latest updates on the brewery and upcoming beers. Show everyone how you celebrate great beer as a heretic.
It's a fairly powerful word. Being a heretic, that means you're not settling for ordinary beer. You are going with flavorful, creative, bold, interesting beers. A heretic is looking for the best beers out there.
Be a heretic. Don't drink ordinary beer. Since the first time the Brewing Network microphones turned on, More Beer was behind it. More Beer sponsors the programming on the BN because, like you, they love brewing. And like the Brewing Network, they love sharing their knowledge. Morebeer.com isn't just a website to place your next equipment or ingredient order. Morebeer.com also gives you access to free beer information that will make you a better brewer. Go to morebeer.com and click into the Learning Center. You'll find podcasts, technical facts, video tutorials, and more, including access to The Buzz, More Beer's social network of more than 5,000 members. And some of them might even be crazier about beer than you are. Get over to morebeer.com today and take advantage of The Buzz, the forum, the Learning Center, and make sure you're signed up to receive the newest More Beer catalog. More Beer, bringing you absolutely everything for beer making.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
Big technicals. That's what we're all about.
Got to freak JP out. Went to get a beer, and
when that music starts, I just expect everyone to be in here, not because I'm a control ass, but like because then I'm going, shit. What am I going to say? Right? I don't know what am I going to say. I just want to be good for my boss, so he gives me my $5. You know what I mean?
You work harder for $5 than anybody I know, JP.
It's it freaks me out a little bit. And then we had 22 seconds left, so it wasn't like a big deal. And you came in and everything was fine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lesson I have to learn in life. And you know what Jamil was doing, by the way? He was getting himself a beer.
Yes.
I'm thirsty.
So was I.
My can of Bitter American is empty. Oh wow!
I selected a Back in Black, the 21A brewery. Yeah,
that sounds
American
good.
IPA brewed with rich dark malts. Black IPA, 6.8% alcohol by volume, 65 IBU. In the can.
Was that our first break? That was our first break.
You know how I like it in the can.
Was that our first break?
That was our first break. Wow.
I don't know. All right.
Yeah, that first question was a long one.
Speaking of
first questions,
great
long ones,
black beers.
Oh.
Hey Jamil, I recently bought your Evil Twin kit from Northern Brewer, and I love it.
Right.
This is from Ken, by the way.
We can.
I was on your Heretic site and saw the Shallow Grave Porter. I was wondering if there's an extract recipe out there for this. I live in Michigan, and until you start distributing in my state, I will never get to try it. He's very negative Nancy. I listen to all your shows from the Brewers Network. From the Brewers Network on my way to work, and I have learned so much from you and your friends. Thanks for sharing all your knowledge and brew strong, Kinsey.
Well, Kinsey, Northern Brewer will have a Shallow Grave kit here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So I don't know if they've got it ready yet. They're going to have a kit of Shallow Grave, Evil Cousin, Evil Twin, pretty much all those.
Everything.
Yes.
Nice work.
Although the Evil Twin is the homebrew version, not the commercial version, which we do kind of different because of the restrictions on the commercial process as far as,
Yeah.
I can't put a big copper coil in the 40-barrel brew kettle.
It happens. I'm in talks with a brewery for Can You Brew It? And they had sent me links to... They have a kit at Northern Brewer. And they sent me links to the homebrew recipe. And I was like, well... And I explained to them that we enjoy getting the recipe from the brewer because it is a different process. Even though the recipe might be very similar, it's very different. So
Absolutely.
there you go. Look at that. You guys want to jump right into another question?
Yep.
This is from Dave in Hicksville, Ohio.
Hicksville.
It's an unfortunate name. I mean, I guess they just kind of, when they named the town, they're like, this is the bar. It's real
Yeah.
low. JC. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Palmer.
I was going to say it wasn't named after Randolph Hicks, the railroad tycoon.
I don't know, but I don't like you for even
probably.
knowing that might be a possibility because you're just like smart.
He probably just made the whole thing up.
You're like Cliff Clavin.
That's one thing you need to know about my friend John Palmer.
He would put Cliff Clavin to shame.
He just come up with bullshit every once in a while.
Yes.
Jay-Z and JP, I'm assuming he means John Palmer. Yeah, whenever you guys hear the reference JP, they're not talking about John Palmer, they're talking about me.
Right.
I get emails and Facebook posts all the time.
Yeah,
hey, I love
like,
your book.
JP.
And I go, I haven't written it yet. And they go, what do you mean? And I go, this is Jason Petros. And they're like, oh.
There's only one JP, and that's you.
Right.
And everybody else goes by their names in my world.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, Jay-Z and Rock Candy. Let's change that.
Yeah.
I was reading about pre-prohibition breweries in my area and came across Halm Brewery in Bryan, Ohio. The literature stated that one of the brewery's secrets was that it used egg white to clarify the beer and gain head retention. Will you please make sense of this? I appreciate all you've done for the home brewing community, and I've become a much better brewer since listening to the show. Thanks, Dave.
Protein tannin complexes. So you throw in the protein, and it binds with the tannins. It pulls them out and forms more clumps. You know,
Clumps.
More break material. And if you remove more tannins from the beer, you're not going to get as much haze later on. You know, those protein tannin complexes.
Yeah, it's like a lot like adding Irish moss or carrageenan type protein to the beer. Egg white would probably behave similarly. similarly.
Irish moss is definitely a lot easier to get.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Okay, this is from Nick in Ohio. He says, after listening to the Brew Strong podcast, I'm now going through them one by one, taking notes. Thank you for the great resource. One thing I have noticed in the shows is that often the Brew Strong crew and the guests refer to, quote, dialing in your process. As a new brewer, less than 10 batches, I'm wondering exactly what that means. I jump straight into all grain without doing extract first, so what kinds of things do I need to look at while I'm brewing to have it dialed in? I've measured things like evaporation rate, mash conversion, efficiency, etc. I've not tried different grain crushers on my mill, but I'm assuming that may be part of it. I have temperature-controlled fermentation as well as good sanitization. I also take measurement throughout the brew day. I don't concern myself too much with hitting my numbers exactly, as long as I'm close and know there's not a problem. What would you recommend? Anyway, thanks for the great resource. You guys are great. Peace, Nick. He's a peace Nick.
Well, it sounds like he is dialing in his process if he's paying attention to these various variables.
Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, is there anything else that he can do? Or I mean, he says he doesn't concern himself with hitting numbers, but that's part of dialing a that's the point of dialing in. That's the end result, right?
I think, when I talk about dialing in your process, I talk about what I intend to mean is repeatability. Right, so you've got your process down. So every time you brew, you could brew the same beer, identical beer, multiple times, because you have control over all these bits of your process. You've got them dialed in to where it's repeatable every time. You get the same result, and then once you've got your process down like that and it's repeatable, you can go ahead and make slight adjustments to get the beer you want, and that's where you're dialing it in. Where you make this setting instead of a 6 needs to be a 7, right? Yeah. So you're adjusting the dials of your process to improve the beer, but in order to do that, you need repeatability. You need to be able to do the same thing time and time again.
Right, and that's the reason you're taking numbers.
Right. Yeah. And keeping notes on what you did last time in terms of recipe, timing, temperature, etc.
And what the actual number is. People get hung up on like mash temperature, and they're freaking out because instead of 154 is 153, and it's like, who cares?
Yeah,
right.
As long as it's 153 every time or 154 every time, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what the actual real temperature is. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. It's just, can you do that same thing time and time again? If you can, then there you go. Now you got something. Now you got something you can work with. If it's 150 one time and 160 another time and 155 the third time without any sort of control, then you're going to have a hard time getting your process dialed in.
Basically, if you can screw up the same way every time, then you're fine.
Exactly, that's better. Yeah, that's your process.
This comes from Tom in Motueka, New Zealand. He's having problems getting the rolling boiling movement that he's heard you guys talk about. He says, I've taken temperature readings of the wort throughout the boil, and it seems that I'm getting easily in excess of boiling point, about 106 to 108 centigrade. But I'm still not seeing the rolling action. When I add the hops, the wort kicks up, bubbles and splashes in a good boil for a few minutes, but then the action dies down again and it all looks fairly calm. Also, if I use a paddle to create a whirlpool in the wort during the boil, it seems to suck a bit of air in, and again it starts to kick and bubble, but only for about a minute or two before it dies down. Could the issue simply be the high sugar content of the wort, which might be raising the boiling temperature to a point beyond the reach of my system? Or could it be something to do with the height to diameter ratio of the boiling keg affecting the pressure of the liquid at the bottom? I've never had a problem getting full bitterness extraction from the hops, and to my knowledge, I've got no problems with DMS. It just bothers me that I'm not seeing the rolling boil that I've heard I should be getting. He goes, let me know if you think it's a problem, that it's not a vigorous boil, or should he leave well enough alone since seeing as the beers come out okay? Kind of what we were just talking about.
Right. So if you're not getting any boiling action at all, then that's a problem. But I'm just wondering if he's looking at it and saying, well, it's not like leaping all over the place. It's, you should be getting bubbles rising to the surface. And if you look at it closely, you'll see those bubbles form a little kind of a mound when they come up. And
there should be some texture to the surface. It's not flat.
Right.
It's there's high and low points.
Mm-hmm.
There's movement across the surface. The foam's moving.
Well, when we're talking about a rolling of the surface, again, the bubbles come up and they form kind of a little mound, and that mound, when it raises up, the wort that is there at the top, it flows back down the sides. So it helps you to get those exchanges of wort to the surface where you can off-gas those precursors of DMS and things like that. That's why it's important to get an appropriate boil. It doesn't have to be violent and leaping out of the kettle. It just needs to be agitating the surface and bubbles rising to the top. Now, if you're not getting that, it would have to be a really high sugar concentration. And also, if you're getting to 106 or 108 C, that's a really hot temperature. I would question the calibration of the thermometer in that case. That doesn't seem quite right.
Yeah, even at 1.1, the boiling point at sea level should be only like a 102 C.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so 106, 108 doesn't sound right.
Well, unless he's in high in the mountains, well,
then you'd get a lower temperature.
Oh, would you?
Yeah.
Maybe he's underground.
You have to get pressure in order to boil that high. Now, the ratio of the kettle can make a difference. Mm-hmm. Again, it would have to be pretty deep and pretty tall in order to get to that temperature. So make sure you're using a properly calibrated thermometer and try that again. And then, if you're getting any sort of boiling movement, then that should be okay.
I think, Jamil, when you and I talk about a rolling boil, we're trying to differentiate between a simmer and a boil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And a simmer is simply where you see little bubbles break
tiny
at the
bubbles,
surface,
and the surface remains flat.
Flat,
mm-hmm.
Exactly. So we're talking about seeing,
texture, like you say. Yeah, it's a good way to describe it. Movement.
I did a video for More Beer way back when of a rolling boil, and I put it up somewhere. I don't know where it is, but maybe
so
that's
a boil that was moving
you
around on your butt, or
I was falling into it.
Oh.
Maybe that's what you should do, Palmer, or whatever. Shoot a little video and say this is what it is.
Okay.
Clarify it.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't really care. I do care.
It's a good point, and actually,
I'm just being weird, filling time while I read this next email. I'm sorry. This is from McGruffus, good buddy McGruffus, who wants everyone to know that he does have an Android phone, and he's on the T-Mobile network, which is America's first nationwide 4G network. I use a cartridge filter to prepare all my brewing water, but I've always wondered if the speed with which I filter has an effect on the filter's ability to remove chlorine and chloramine. I've always assumed slower is better, but am I just wasting time?
No, the longer the contact time, the better. And in certain filters, they actually have more surface area. Different types of materials they'll use, like coconut carbon,
really
has a much better surface area, and that's much more effective at removing those. So usually the filters have a stated flow rate at which they essentially guarantee a certain level of removal of compounds. And so you want to check that for the filter you're using, and then you can go up to that. Generally, most of the homebrew size ones are like a gallon a minute type of thing, no more than that.
I brewed the other day, and I had my water filter out there and whatever, and totally didn't turn off the hose.
Mm-hmm.
And
left it running.
2 days later, I'm doing laundry, and I hear the water running. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I just opened the door, and it was going kind of slow, but it was
nice
still
swimming
going.
Pool in the backyard?
No, the neighbors did though.
Oh man,
great! All right, let's do this. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, more of your questions after this.
What does craft beer mean to you? Is it a delicious way to support your town's local brewer? Or perhaps it's the perfect beverage to pair with those delicious devils on horseback? Regardless of whether you're thinking of pints or pairings, pilsners or porters, craftbeer.com is the site where craft beer lovers come together to learn and share. Craftbeer.com is brought to you by the Brewers Association and celebrates the best of American craft beer and its brewers. Craftbeer.com is the best place to find craft beer events, recipes, great feature stories, the most up-to-date brewery listings, and resources for your next beer tasting or dinner, like style guidelines, pairing mats, and charts. Get the inside scoop on new beer releases and special events from today's craft beer insiders, and chime in to share your own knowledge, perfect pairings, road trips, recipes, and more. Craftbeer.com, celebrating the best of American beer.
Nico, listen, our lawyers said that we had to do this for 1 hour, and after this, we don't have to talk to each other for 3 more months to the next meeting.
Kids, come on, let's get out of here.
I'm supposed to have more lines. I'm the professional. Hey, it's Sully.
And I'm Nico.
And we opened the 21st Amendment 9 years ago at 563 2nd Street in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park, to make great beer and have a great time doing it.
That's right, because to us, the 21st Amendment is more than just the right to make beer. It's the right to experiment, to be innovative, and just do things differently. And so now, we're putting our craft beer in cans.
That's right, cans. You can find our world-famous Hell or High Watermelon Wheat Beer and Brew Free or Die IPA throughout California and Alaska.
And now it's also available on draft at select accounts in the Bay Area.
So next time you're at your local neighborhood pub or good beer store, be sure to ask for 21st Amendment in cans.
Because everyone likes it in a can.
Tasty crack cans.
Tasty crack can.
Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Cut hours off your brewing sessions by using one of our 11 varieties of famous Williams malt extract. Our Williams Belgian Pale Extract is mashed with pure Belgian 2-row malt and a small percentage of Belgian wheat malt for an authentic Belgian character you just can't get from other extracts. Or check out our unique fermenters, 2.5-gallon kegs, paintball tank-based draft beer equipment, bottling aids, and much more. We even have our own line of precision hydrometers. Go to WilliamsBrewing.com to browse our vast selection. That's WilliamsBrewing.com. Orders placed by 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time ship the same day. Brewing is easy. The Williams way.
Back to your hosts, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. Putting the testicles in technical. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. Live Q&A show. And I'll tell you, if you have questions about becoming a BJCP judge, you can check the bjcp.org website. But a great way, one of the most common questions that I get from people is, how do I learn all this stuff? How do I, prepare myself for the test? One of the better ways to go is the Better Beer Scores. I think it's a really interesting, fun, new way that you can learn about all the stuff in craft beer and brewing to prepare you to pass the BJCP, the Beer Judge Certification Program exam. They guarantee your success. If you don't pass with at least 60% or better, you can retake the course free of charge. They guarantee your satisfaction. If you don't like the course, by the end of the second session, you get refunded. And I say by the second session, these are not canned bits of information that you just sit there dumbly and just, try and absorb. It's actually a guided seminar on the web. It's live. It's interactive. You can talk and chat with them and ask questions, and there's other people there that you can participate with. They limit the group size to 24 people, so you have a chance to ask your questions, and you also have other people there to ask questions that you may not think of. That's a important part of the learning process. So it's pretty cool. I would go and check it out if you're interested in becoming a BJCP judge. When I took the BJCP exam and studied for that, it taught me a lot about beer and understanding beer and appreciating beer, and made me a better brewer. So I highly recommend it for anybody interested in improving their brewing knowledge.
I agree.
Go check them out, www.beerjudgeeducation.com, or you can find them on Facebook. Better Beer Scores. So check it out.
All right. Back to the questions from our buddy Secret Lab in the chat. And as always, if you're in the chat, your questions come first. Secret Lab has a question about whether mash thickness really makes a big difference in wort fermentability. I've started messing around with ratios between 1.25 to 1.5 quarts per gallon and haven't noticed a big difference. And he says also, doesn't Tasty use one water volume for everything? I don't know that. But.
Well, yeah, but he uses one volume of water.
Yeah.
The ratio changes. He isn't using the same ratio on
I always
beer.
use the same ratio. It's 1.1 quarts.
Right, I use the same
pound
ratio.
because that's what I was taught at.
Right, I use 1.3, but Tasty just prepares a certain volume of water, and that's what he uses, and it doesn't matter, how much grain there is. So he's using a variable ratio, and our friend Kai, he did I think an experiment on this. Fermentability at different mash temps. I think it's on his site. You might, Google that.
Beerkaiser.com.
Beerkaiser.com, and it's what we've known. It makes a difference, but it's minor. So people have always freaked out about this, and we're like, well, you can just change the temperature by a degree or two and get more of an effect. So, it's really not that important. There's other factors involved in that, and, conversion rates and temperature loss and volume of your kettle. And the point to take away, I think, is that don't worry about that volume or that ratio. Just, you can adjust it down to fit with whatever type of beer you're doing. And, if you want to change it for a different type of beer, if you're really trying to eke out the most fermentability or the least fermentability, you can change that and use that as one more tool in your arsenal. If you're at 160 Fahrenheit and you still want a more dextrinous wort, maybe you go down to, a quart per pound or less, and try and hedge it that way.
Yeah.
So,
but be consistent. I'm sorry, I've accidentally turned your mic off.
One of the most, be consistent in turning my mic off.
That's
one of the most important things, I think.
Fierce Beard in the chat has a pretty neat question, actually. I'm about to move into a 150 square foot efficiency apartment. There's no yard, and the kitchen is communal and down the hall.
And you're allowed an hour of yard time a day?
Yeah, basically. I get conjugals every Thursday. My wife will sneak in a vial of yeast.
He wants to know how to brew in the toilet?
Yeah. He did put efficiency in quotes. It's pretty good. I'm about to move into a 150 square foot efficiency apartment. There's no yard, and the kitchen is communal and down the hall. I want to brew 1 gallon batches in my room on a hot plate. But I don't have any idea how to measure out the proper amount of yeast. I like that. That's his concern. I love that.
Right.
Not anything else. Not cleanup. Not smell for everybody else. But how to do it right. It's good.
Right.
I
Well,
like it.
if you're using, like a White Labs or a Y-Yeast pack, then, you can assume that's about 100 to 110 billion cells in those packages. And if you use the pitching rate calculator on MrMalty.com, it's free. And, kind of give you an idea of how much yeast you need for a given batch of beer. You can set a batch size of 1 gallon there, and it'll tell you how much yeast, and then just look at the number of cells needed, and if it's under 100 billion, just divide it. If it says 50 billion, then you can get a propagator pack from Y yeast, which is I think 35 to 50 billion cells, and that might be just about right. You can just pitch that direct.
Yeah.
And give that a try.
Yeah, 100 billion cells is supposed to be not perfect, but on target for a 5-gallon batch of 1040. So if he's doing a 1-gallon batch 40, he could kind of divide that that 100 billion by 5 and figure 20 billion cells.
But if you pitched one vial of White Labs into a gallon batch, it's not. I mean, is that too? Excuse me, would that be over pitching?
It's getting to the problematic range. But if you're doing something like a 1060 or 1070 wort, I think you're fine. Yeah, you can toss in the whole vial. I think you'd be okay.
Just shake it up and put in 3/4. I mean, you're going to spend that money anyways, right?
So I think you'd be okay.
Yeah.
If you were brewing like 2 days in a row, shake it up, pour half in.
Yeah.
Recap it, put it back in the fridge, and then the next day, or later on that same day, if you're brewing 2 batches, then pitch that in the second one. Yeah. You make a couple of different beers, but over pitching is less of a problem than under pitching. So, I'd err on the side of being a little heavy because I guess his question is how do I measure, how much yeast, and that would be one way to do it. The other way, if you can do it in a nice sterile way. And you really want to know exactly how much to use, the best way to measure any liquid is by weight. So, you could weigh out, the amount of liquid from the Y yeast pack or from the White Labs vial, see how much you got, and divide that in half or whatever amount, and that would be, more precision. But I think you can eyeball it and just go a little towards the heavy side, and you'll be fine.
Here's one that's right up your guys' alley, and you'll excuse the pun. This is from Dave, who has a Verizon Wireless BlackBerry. Hi, Jamil and John. I love that. Anyway, my brewing partner has recently been complaining that our milk stout gives him the farts like no other. He searched online and found that it can be from leftover dextrins. The beer finishes at 10:23 and has 2 pounds of lactose sugar in it, so it does ferment out completely. He also claims that he gets the same thing if he drinks a lot of PBR. My good man. That's America. My dad says he gets the farts if he drinks a lot of different beers or a lot of Hefeweizens. My question is, what's your experience with homebrew and craft beer and excessive farting? What causes it? Are we doing something wrong in our process that is causing this? Is this something we can control? Well, yeah, you clinch. Thanks so much. Love the show. Keep up the great work. Dave from his Verizon Wireless BlackBerry.
Well, I think that if you're an excessive farter, you're an excessive farter. That's just it has nothing to do with the beer, Yeah. It's something to do with your intestinal.
Well, I mean, you could be
flora and fauna.
Well, like
eat more yogurt.
Could be alcohol related. Maybe you have a weird intolerance to barley. You could be slightly celiac.
Right, or they could be, lactose intolerant, because if you're talking a milk stout, lactose is essentially what,
Yeah, well, he also does it with PBR, too.
Right, so that doesn't mean anything, right? There's no yeast in a PBR, right? It's, He
might have a touch of the celiac. Yeah, he might be allergic to gluten a little bit.
Right, but, then, eat a piece of bread, and if you start farting from a piece of bread, then, you got like a gluten problem.
Yeah, but if it's homebrew, then it may just be yeast. I mean, if he's swallowing yeast, that'll do it.
But if it's PBR, then it's like, well, there's no yeast in PBR.
No, it's dextrins there.
Right. So I don't see how that could be it. I think people like to attribute something to something else, and there's just no cause and effect that could be measured. It's just, that's what's happening. That's what they just think. So I don't know. I think. Take a Beano and then drink your beer and see if that helps.
This one is from Tater Tot in the chat room. Tater Tot says, I've been thinking about getting a used bourbon barrel. My plan is to brew enough old ale to fill the barrel and let it age for a year. Each year, I would take a specific amount of beer off of it and brew and ferment enough to fill the barrel back up again. A modified Solara system. Mm-hmm. Is there any issues I might have with this? Any suggestions? Pretty open-ended. I mean, that could be a 15-minute conversation, right?
Yeah, you just need to be careful if you're going to store something in a barrel for a long period of time. There's going to be evaporation that happens. You need to keep topping that barrel off on a regular basis, like every week, depending on the humidity and temperature. Yeah. So you're going to need to set aside, at least a 5-gallon keg, if not more, just for topping up in between. And then, the thing's oxidizing that whole time. So unless you have, something else going on, you're going to get a lot of those oxidative characters over the period of, a year or something.
And if you're only pulling off 5 gallons a year or something like that, you're getting a lot of character after a while.
You need to do it more frequently than that, I would think. Mm-hmm. Just depends on how big the barrel is. And how much character you want. Give it a try. Let experience be your guide on that, but just keep those things in mind.
Real quick,
need to change the frequency.
Real quick follow-up question from Who Ate All the Pies, our good buddy. When you do top up the barrel, do you top up with fermented carbonated beer?
Fermented beer, not carbonated.
Yeah, because
it just foams all over the place.
It'll uncarbonate anyway, right?
Yeah. But fermented beer. And I guess, if you have active yeast in there, you could top it up like on a sour beer or something like that. You could add just wort to it and let it keep going. Mm-hmm. But on what the other guy was saying, it sounded like I would use a fermented out beer. The Heretic, where you just transfer we fill the barrels and then we transfer the rest of the beer to stainless kegs. And then each week we go and we check every barrel. We top it up off of one of those kegs that are not pressurized, and if they do become pressurized, then that ends up in foaming. All right, let's take a short break, and we'll wrap up with a couple more questions when we come back after this.
When Blickman Engineering set out to design a great brewing stand, they knew it had to be strong, adaptable, and last for a lifetime. The top-tier brewing stand is now proudly available at BlickmanEngineering.com. It grows with your brewing skills and equipment. Start with 5-gallon coolers on its heavy-gauge stainless steel shelves. Then move all the way up to 30-gallon pots on the high-output burner tiers. Speaking of burners, the custom Blickman Engineering top-tier burners are extremely powerful, efficient, and amazingly quiet. They have safety stops to center your pot, and they'll last a lifetime and won't rust. The top-tier brewing stand allows virtually infinite combinations from traditional gravity systems to 2 tiers to completely horizontal. Configure your stand the way you want and have the freedom to change it at any time in the future. Your brewing stand should adapt with you, not force you to learn a new process. Visit BlickmanEngineering.com today to configure your top-tier brewing stand and to find a local Blickman retailer. You'll be surprised with all the flexible features and the competitive price. Start brewing with Blickman from the top tier.
In a world where everything has been lost.
What happened to the city? It's in ruins.
Only one man has the ancient knowledge to restore civilization.
I need a drink. Oh no, the liquor store's been ransacked.
You looking for beer, stranger? Boy, all the liquor got drunk up in the first 25 minutes of the apocalypse.
Wait, there's still some bottles over... Oh, no. Those are non-alcoholic beer.
I reckon you better stick to arrowroot tea and a desperate nomadic existence like the rest of us.
People, I'm a home brewer. I know how to make alcohol.
It can't be done.
Come with me if you want the beer. Okay, I'm gonna need some big plastic buckets.
He is the chosen one. The prophecies say that he's gonna get us wasted.
Someone start heating water. And
from the creators of Northern Brewer, the people who brought you $7.99 Brew Saver shipping, massive selection, and superior customer service comes the Home Brewer.
Hi, I'm Jamel Zanishev, and in addition to my work on the Brewing Network, I write the Style Profile column in every issue of Brew Your Own magazine.
Hi, I'm Sean Paxton, and when I'm not prepping for the Home Brewed Chef on the Brewing Network, you can find me writing articles on how to cook with your home brew for Brew Your Own magazine.
Greetings, cretins. This is John Palmer, and when I'm not writing for Brew Your Own, I'm reading it.
John Palmer, Sean Paxton, Jamil Zanishev. If you love listening to them on the Brewing Network, you'll love reading their articles, tips, and recipes in the pages of Brew Your Own magazine. Join Jamil, John, and Sean 8 times a year in Brew Your Own. And when you subscribe to BYO on the Brewing Network website, half of your subscription price goes right back to the BN to support great beer and food programming. So sign up for Brew Your Own magazine through the BN website today so you can listen and read your way to better homebrew.
Hey, what are you doing, man?
Writing a review of WLP 400.
What? You're reviewing yeast?
Yeah. White Labs has home brewer reviews of all their strains. Are you new to these interwebs? Check it out.
That's awesome.
White Labs, your source for great yeast, invites all brewers to visit whitelabs.com to read and write your own reviews of all their yeast strains. Get real-world tips and tricks from other brewers who have made the most of their vials and post your own experiences. It's another way White Labs brings you closer to the best yeast on the planet.
And send. There you go.
You misspelled flocculate, dude.
What?
White Labs. It's all in the vial.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew strong.
All right, we're back. And
speaking of backs.
Yeah, fellas, gals, you're looking to spice things up in the bedroom? Been fantasizing about surprising your lover with an adventurous new toy or adult movie? Well, here's an offer you won't be able to resist. Go to adamandeve.com. For a limited time only, you'll get 50% off just about any item. And that's not all. When you select your one item at 50% off, you also will receive 3 free adult DVDs. And you'll get a free extra gift along with that. So you just you type in the offer code JAMIL, and you're going to get 50% off an item. And buying that one item at 50% off, they're going to throw in the 3 DVDs, they're going to throw in the extra gift, and they're going to throw in free shipping. So for one small purchase, you get a bunch of stuff, and the idea is you get to check out one of our great sponsors and their fine customer service and wide selection of products. AdamandEve.com. Go check it out. Just use the offer code JAMIL, JAMIL. At AdamandEve.com, you get all that stuff for free. It's a really good deal, so go check it out. All right. I think we got time for one more question.
All right, let's go to the email. We can save some of the chat, guys, for later, even though I lied.
Yeah, if you're listening live, we'll be doing another Q&A show right after this, so stay tuned.
This is a good question. This is from Justin. He says, "Hey guys, I'm relatively new home brewer, and I'm brewing extract kits
Justin Crosley
from Northern Brewer.
He's been brewing it for a long time, I thought.
Well, he's relatively new still.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. He's probably only made like 4 batches,
right?
And only 3 people have ever tried them. I'm brewing pretty good beer, in my opinion, but I've had trouble hitting the original gravity that is printed on the kit box. This is from Northern Brewer.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling it might have something to do with me recently upgrading to a full wort boil.
Mm-hmm.
I'm brewing 5-gallon batches in an 8-gallon aluminum pot, and I've been trying to figure out how much water to start with.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I just brewed Northern Brewer's English Pale Ale kit, and they show an OG of 1056.
Mm-hmm.
I have 7 gallons in my pot, ended up with a little more than 5 gallons after the boil, but my OG was 1042. Do you have any suggestions as to how I can achieve the proper number? I appreciate any help you can give. I'm a big fan of yours and everyone over at the BN. That must mean me also.
Right?
Yeah, I would think it would.
Yeah. So he's having problems hitting his numbers. What does he have to start with? I imagine he has to figure out his evaporation rate, right?
Right. If you target the way those kits are done, they have a finishing gravity or finishing volume in mind, and usually for a lot of the kits, it's 5 gallons at the end of the boil, right?
Right.
So if you're over 5 gallons, then you're a little too high. You're diluting the amount of extract that's in there, or sugar that's in there, and so you're getting a lower starting gravity. You can boil a little bit longer, or start with a little bit less water, so you end up at the 5 gallon mark, and that should correct it for you. The other possibility is the steeping grains. If you are not fully rinsing those grains and getting everything out of them, that could be another potential issue.
Or, a couple points there.
I mean, even just getting all the extract out of the
container.
Right.
Yeah. If you're not, put some hot liquid in there, hot water in there, swirl it around, dump that back out. That can make a difference as well. Anything else you can think of, JP, that people common mistakes?
I'm assuming you're talking to me and not John Palmer.
I am.
I'll let John Palmer go.
You worked for a long time with a lot of people.
I did. That's true. And, really the only thing I would say is check your, when you say a little more than 5 gallons, what does that necessarily mean?
Right.
You see it an inch above the 5 gallon mark on your kettle. That could be 5.5 gallons.
Yeah,
it could almost be 6.
That mark could be wrong, too.
You never know. Yeah, so check that because if you start with 7 gallons in the first place, and you boil off 2 gallons, a gallon and a half, and you're only at 1042.
Yeah,
that math
right.
doesn't add up. So
also check how you're measuring your gravity, make sure that's correct. But most of the time, when people complain about not hitting their gravities at any point in the process, it's because they fail to correctly measure the volume that they have.
Right.
And they think, that's close enough. That's 5 gallons. It's like, it makes a huge difference. So, water is, quite effective at diluting your sugars.
Palmer, what do you start out with because you've done quite a bit of extract, right?
Yeah. I usually for an extract boil, I'm usually using like 6 to 6.5 gallons. Not all the way up to 7 often. Because I found I get less trub than with an all grain, but ratio it out. It's simple math. So if it's supposed to be 1060 at 5 gallons, that's 5 times 6. That's 300 points, and if you divide by another volume, let's say 6 gallons, that works out to 1050. Check when you initially dilute the extract and start the boil. If you know what that volume is and you measure the gravity, then you should be able to calculate how much you boil off for any final gravity or any end of boil gravity. So check it as you go. He may be diluting more than he thinks he is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so too. And I usually start out with 6 gallons whenever I do, or 6.5. So he could just have a giant vigorous boil. A couple people in the chat have said he might have a hydrometer reading error. Like if he doesn't have a correctable hydrometer, he may not be reading at 60 degrees, which is really
60
what
degrees. Also, the paper inside those hydrometers. I see people dropping them into the hydrometer jars, and it goes dink against the bottom. Every time you do that, and that little piece of paper shifts just ever so slightly.
Oh my god!
And it doesn't take much to make that thing read lower and lower every time. So you want every once in a while, check your hydrometer in just regular old tap water at the proper temperature, and it should read right at 0.
Solid.
So that's another important point. And the one thing I think if you haven't tried, I would call the good folks at Northern Brewer and say, hey, I'm having a little difficulty here. What do you think could be the possibility? And those guys know those kits really well.
Yeah,
great customer service. They're good folks to work with. So you're buying from a great company. So don't hesitate to take advantage of that and ask them for a little bit of help. That's what they're there for.
I would throw it to Palmer, but I think he got eaten by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Definitely check how you're measuring your liquid. Start with 6.5 gallons. Double check your hydrometer, and you'll probably solve your problem.
Yep. All right.
What do you think, Jamil?
Excellent show. I think we had a bunch of good ones. What do you think, Mr. Palmer?
I think it was an excellent show as well.
Yeah. And we'll do another one coming up real soon here. If you listen live, or if you'd like to listen live, just go to thebrewingnetwork.com, and there's the listen live thing there. If you sign up on Twitter or Facebook, we post that these Brew Strong shows are happening and when, and you can listen to them while we do the shows. And there's a little chat now button. You can jump into the show and ask questions live while it's happening, give feedback on the show while we do it. It's a great way to participate. Also, check out the Brewing Network store at thebrewingnetwork.com. There's a link there for Brew Your Own magazine. I write the style profile column for Brew Your Own for the past several years, and if you sign up for Brew Your Own, 50% of the subscription price goes direct to the Brewing Network and really helps out. So keeps programming like this on the air. So if you like it, make sure you participate in those things. Check out the books and other goodies that are in the store. Check out the other possible links. Zymergy through the AHA. You sign up for that, and the Brewing Network gets a portion of that sale as well. And you go to support a great organization that helps support homebrewers everywhere. All right, so another good show. Another one coming up. Till then, brew strong.
Brew strong, everybody.